I'm going to just go on a roll here talking about dark night of the soul stages that we most practitioners who meditate regularly go through, how to recognize and how to work with them. And just know that the dark night of the soul can be very confusing because we don't always know we're in the dark night stage. But anyhow, yeah, so I'm just going to go for a roll. If you have any questions, please mark them in your mind and ask them after I'm done so that I don't get off of my roll. So what's really interesting is that this dark night stuff is not talked about much in the West. Like you don't go on retreats and they talk about dark night of the soul. You're going to go through some dark territory, some difficult territory, and you're within yourself, and you might have struggle, and it might feel like depression, but it's not. You know, they don't tell us these things. They talk about all the wonderful benefits of mindfulness, how it helps calm the mind and bring us more peace, and it's marketed as a, to reduce anxiety and depression, when the truth is it can actually elicit anxiety and depression as we go through some of these stages, and that they're not permanent if you know how to work with them, if that makes any sense. But we go through these spiritual kind of concepts. You can't see the light without darkness, right? You can't appreciate happiness unless you've experienced deep grief or sadness. That we're in a reality where there are opposites, and we can't, as we know, we can't experience all wonderful positive things in the earthly realm and never have negative or difficult things, right? And yet we know that this practice is a spiritual practice, in that if we do it enough and long enough, we will experience the dropping away of this self and the importance of the self. And we can connect to feeling the unity of all beings and the love that underlies existence. We can experience our Buddha nature, and everyone's Buddha nature. But that's on the ultimate realm. And we're both ultimate and relative. Relative, we have this body, heart, and mind. We have thoughts, we have emotions, we have to drink water, we have to breathe in order to live. We have real physical limitations here in the earthly realm, the relative realm. But the ultimate realm, all of these dualities drop away, and there's just pure union with everything, right? And both of these are true, right? So what is this darkness about? And why do we even have to go through the darkness? Yeah, the Buddha talked about the Buddhist practice as a purification process, right? In so many of his instructions, that meditations purify the mind, purify the mind. Well, what are we purifying the mind of? Right? We're purifying the mind of delusions, of darkness, of misunderstandings, of trauma, of things that hold us back from experiencing our true nature. Yeah, if we want to experience our true nature, we actually have to go through seeing all the things that are not our true nature first, and we have to see how we're attaching to and clinging to things to bring us happiness and peace that don't bring us happiness or peace, right? They bring us more bondage. But we have to see it really clearly, and seeing all these things clearly can be very painful, right? Yeah, so this is the traditional meditation practices. The stress reduction is a side effect, but first you go through a lot of stress, often, depending on what your childhood and what your life is like, or your karmic patterns. If you have difficult background with very highly anxious parents who were traumatized unbeknownst to themselves or unwilling, didn't mean to traumatize their children, but did, then you probably have a stronger purification process to go through. From a Buddhist perspective, if you've had many past lives where you've been, suffering a lot in many past lives, and you bring this karmic conditions to this life, your purification process in the dark night is probably going to be harder than someone who's had a really easy, wonderful life with not a lot of karma, not a lot of negative karma. Yeah. So this dark night of the soul, we go through stages in our practice. If we're meditating daily, meditating regularly, we're going to start going through some of these stages. And we go through stages where everything's doing great, and we're feeling wonderful, and we're really curious, and we're loving it. It's like, oh wow, this is great. And we're seeing every thought, emotion, sensation. It's like, oh wow, I see now how I was really causing suffering for myself by worrying about what someone's going to do and trying to control them. It's really exciting when we start having these insights. That's why it's called insight meditation. But then, then we have these sometimes really peaceful, wonderful, loving experiences, and then all of a sudden we start having difficulties and we think that something's wrong. Something's wrong. My practice, I've gone backwards, right? I'm really struggling right now. I can't focus, I can't sit, having a hard time. I'm like, oh, okay, this is good. This is part of the dark night stuff that you're going through. I went through a very deep 1.5 years of dark night. Then I didn't know it was a dark night. I thought I was depressed. I was highly anxious. I couldn't sit. I sat for 30 minutes a day. I was sitting 1 to 2 hours a day before that, but do you need anything? Anyhow, that's what the dark night is like, by the way. Things just kind of, anyhow, you have to be here to know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, things just, so for 1.5 years, I went on a retreat. I went on a month-long retreat, and I had a great retreat, and I experienced my true nature and, let go of a bunch of stuff. And then I came home and I was really elated and happy. And within a couple weeks, I felt really dark, depressed. Mood is really heavy and dark. Got really, really highly anxious. Felt depressed, felt like I couldn't focus. Felt like my normal ADD was through the charts, and I felt like just even getting up, taking a shower, paying bills, or anything normal was so highly difficult. Things that used to be okay and normal for me. Yeah, and I felt a lot of hopelessness and despair. I continued to try to meditate 30 minutes a day, but it was very, very hard because I couldn't find my breath for longer than, a couple seconds. I couldn't do metta for longer than a couple seconds. My mind was just bouncing sporadically all over the place. And I thought, oh my God, where did my practice go? This was like about 10 years into my practice, too. I guess I had just gone through enough territory for my psyche to be ready to bring all of this dark stuff up for me to see clearly. And I really, really struggled. And I thought it was my relationship. So it's got to be my husband. He's giving me a hard time. It's got to be the economy, because it was, the economy was doing poorly. It's got to be my job. It's got to be my work. So I was, how the mind searches to try to find why it's suffering. But then I'm like, yeah, no matter what the conditions are, I seem to be struggling. And then I quit going on retreats. Before then, I was going to at least a month long every year, if not several retreats, because 30 minutes was painful. Can you imagine 12 hours a day? Anyhow, so I finally, one of my teachers kept trying to get a hold of me, and I finally responded, and they said, "What's going on with you?" And I said, "I'm really struggling My meditation practice is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And so he asked me a whole bunch of questions, and he knew my practice really well. And he said, I think you're going through a dark night of the soul. I said, what? Dark night of the soul. He said, yeah, everybody goes through that. I said, how come I haven't heard about it? Oh, well, it's a thing. So gave me some instructions on how to work, try to be really, really clear with my meditation, bring more intention and attention to all of the pain and suffering that was happening. And then also suggested I go on another long retreat, because sometimes a long retreat is required to get out of it. So I went through on a 2-week retreat, stuck that in there, and it got me right out of it. And I would like to say that was the end of it. But the thing is, we keep cycling through it over and over and over again. But after the first, some people go through a dark night, it lasts for an hour or 2 hours, where they feel like they're in a really bad, difficult mood, and then they popped out of it and they felt better. Some people, it's a week. Some people, it's an entire lifetime, if they get stuck in it and don't know how to get out, right? What motivated me to talk about this is I've been in a bit of a dark night the last couple of months. I've been feeling really dark and heavy, and my mood's been really down. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? I realized, oh, I'm dark nighting it. That's what I call it. So you can always say I'm dark nighting it. Yeah. And it's a positive thing, because we have to go through and purify whatever's left over, the darkness, the fear, the anxiety. It brings it all up for us to see and to work with. And hopefully do it with compassion, with kindness, with clarity, without taking it personally, right? And understanding that impermanence, that it will pass if we can bring really clear, kind attention. The phrase dark night of the soul can be traced back to a 16th century Spanish poem by Roman Catholic mystic Saint John of the Cross. It's often used in a lot of Christian contemplative traditions, so it's a big deal in Christian traditions. They call it spiritual crisis or dark night. References to the dark night are found in Kundalini, pagan, occult, of course, Christian and Buddhist, but also Jewish and Islamic practices. So it's very common in any kind of spiritual practice. They have same descriptions of this, really time where you're going through such a spiritual crisis, where you feel like hopeless and helpless, or that you can't really deal with what's coming up. But you can if you have some support. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, in the real dark night of the soul, it is always 3 o'clock in the morning. I like that, because 3 o'clock in the morning, when you wake up and your mind is all over the place, it's racing, you're kind of panicking about things that aren't really to be panicked about, or everything seems really dark at 3 in the morning. That's what it feels like. Mother Teresa talks in her, she used to journal and send letters, and talks about her despair that she went through, where she felt like God had abandoned her. She used to feel a really strong connection with God and felt a lot of peace and love, and then all of a sudden she felt really depressed and dark, and that God had abandoned her. So she went through her own dark night of the soul period. Saint John of the Cross writes down about the dark night. The dark night puts the sensory spiritual appetites to sleep, deadens them, and deprives them of the ability to find pleasure in anything. It binds the imagination and impedes it from doing any good discursive work. It makes the memory cease. The intellect becomes dark and unable to understand anything, and hence it causes the will to become arid and constrained, and all the faculties empty and useless. And over this hangs a dense and burdensome cloud which afflicts the soul and keeps it withdrawn from the good. Now, that sounds really depressing and dark, but that's exactly how I felt, right? I think the reason I'm talking about this is if we understand that this might come up and that this is a common experience, then when it comes up, we don't think, we're like, oh, okay, this is progress. This is good because it means now I get to purify and cleanse all this dark stuff. Because what do we normally do when difficult stuff comes up? Up, get up, up. I'm going to run the opposite direction. I'm going to do anything but deal with this, right? This is in the Bible, Mark 15:34. My God, why have you forsaken me? Yeah. That it's common. It's very, very common. And I think it's really important part of stage of our development. In the Buddhist tradition, sometimes called falling into the pit of despair or the pit of the void. Yeah. Yeah, it entails an authentic and irreversible insight into the emptiness and not self, too. Because a lot of times when you have that insight into the not self or pure emptiness, there can be despair, fear, or you can go through the crisis of the dark night of the soul. A lot of people do. Yeah, and that's could be what causes it as far as in Buddhist literature. So the Daniel Ingram, he wrote this great book. He's a scholar, Buddhist scholar, and he went through and described all the stages. I read them and was like, oh, okay, I get this now. And I'll go through each one. This is just dissolution. That's when you enter the dark night. Fear, misery, disgust, desire for deliverance, and reobservation. Those are the stages that are laid out in the Buddhist cosmology. And each stage, we're supposed to learn the lesson of that stage. There's a lesson to be learned that we need to see clearly and open to and allow. Right? So it's dissolution. This is usually we've been doing great. We've been doing great. Dissolution, things start to get harder. Right? Our concentration that used to be great, we could sit and watch our breath. Oh my breath. All of a sudden, we get lost in a lot of stories and fantasies. Our posture becomes worse. We have more physical pain starts arising. It's like the body that had no pain before now all of a sudden hurts really terribly. Daniel Ingram called it the couch potato stage because your motivation, you had this great motivation for practice before, now all of a sudden it's kind of gone. Things aren't juicy anymore. They're kind of difficult. The next stage is the fear stage, which is really interesting. When I was in the fear stage on the retreat, I was paranoid. Sounds were causing me to be startled easily. I was having visions of people coming up and stabbing me in the back. It was just really weird. Things I don't watch horror flicks. I don't think these things. I never sit there at home going, I think someone's going to come attack me. That's not my common way of, being. But I was having all these weird, paranoid, anxious, unsettling visions, which can happen in the fear stage. And it's pretty irrational. It's not really rational. But you can have just physical distortions when you're going through the fear stage. And, I've had physical distortions where I'm like, oh, I'm in the fear stage. You get in a worse mood too. But what typically happened for me is I would feel like I'm leaning forward, but then when I'd open my eyes, I'd be sitting up. Or I'd feel like my head was like this, but when I opened my eyes, my head was, anybody have these kind of distortions? Yeah, they're pretty common. Anyhow, so you want to open to the sphere, see it completely. Right? The first stage, you want to not get involved in your fantasies and stories. You want to not get involved in take the physical pain personally. The fear, you want to see the fear clearly, allow it to be there and have compassion for yourself. See that it's just the fear stage. And this is what fear feels like, right? Third stage, misery. It's getting worse, right? It gets worse before it gets better, by the way. This misery, there's this unshakable sadness and sense of loss. You're like, why should I even bother doing this anymore? Uh, you see the three characteristics tearing down all of your notions of the world, the three characteristics of suffering, impermanence, and not self. You see them clearly, and it's like, oh my God, all of your delusions that you held on to before to feel important or to feel, your life had meaning, and all of a sudden, all of those collapse, right? And you're just like, your attention before, when you could pay attention to your breath at the most smallest scale, now becomes very big and panoramic. You can't focus in on any particular small thing. So you just want to be able to be with your sadness, be with your panoramic view, allow yourself to not try to focus and have really great concentration during this stage. If you have intense grief, allow yourself to feel it. Bring compassion to yourself, loving kindness practice can be helpful. The next stage is disgust. See, it's getting worse, right? So I'm laughing because I've been through it, and you can get through this. But disgust seems impossible. You certainly can't focus at all. Yeah, you're just feelings of disappointment, torment, frustration, the repetitive mind. It's unsatisfactory. It's always looking for negative things to chew on. It's grabbing hold of every negative thing that it can grab hold of, and loop and loop and loop. And you just get in this place of total disgust, like there's really high anxiety during this stage. The anxiety keeps ramping up with each stage, by the way, if you're prone to anxiety or depression. Yeah, so you just want to see your stories clearly, see the torment, see the disappointment, and know that this is normal. This is normal. It's okay. Keep being kind to yourself. Self-care practices are really important during a dark night. The next one is desire for deliverance. This is when you like, I can't take this anymore. I just want this to end, right? You just want happiness. You want excitement. You want fun. You want to quit meditating. To hell with this practice. Buddhism has done nothing but ruin my life. Yeah, so you're looking for solutions to no avail, and you get hyper sensitive to sounds, to rudeness to other people, perhaps. Your emotions are hypersensitive, and you just want it all to end because you feel overwhelmed by it all, right? And you're just like, I can't take this anymore. I just want to be delivered from my suffering. A lot of people might say, okay, I need to become a nun or monk now. I'm going to renunciate. Or if they're already a renunciate, they may decide, I'm leaving renunciation. I'm going to become a layperson because I'm done with all of this. Yeah, so you want to shift and change your life from here to something drastic. So you have to know that this is normal too, and not to make any big decisions when you're dark nighting it, especially when you're in this desire for deliverance. And then the last one is the reobservation is considered the wall. This is when people roll up their mat. It's called the roll up the mat stage. They quit meditating. You can have an incredible aversion to sitting, high levels of restlessness and confusion, feeling like it's impossible to progress, nonstop chatter in the mind, disenchantment with everything, life, sex, money, relationships, morality, right? I was stuck in the reobservation for a year and a half because I didn't know. Yeah, this is a really difficult stage to be in, but people who have mental illness can have psychotic breakdowns during this time. They can have delusions of grandeur, clinical depression. It can look like clinical depression. But you have to just, if you know these stages and you'd be like, okay, now I'm in reobservation, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's okay. I'll get through this. I'm clearing up all my darkness. I have to see it all. This is all the times in our lives that we had disappointment or disenchantment and we never dealt with it is coming up to be seen. Does that make sense? It's coming up to be processed. So we have to just be able to see this. Yeah, the grief and sadness one can feel can be directly related to the death of the ego, because during the practice, your ego gets weaker and weaker, and it starts to dissolve, you know, and we have to, the ego can come up and be like, oh no, you're not, we're not gonna dissolve, this is it, you know, we're staying here, I'm gonna make your life miserable, right? That's one way people look at the dark night. And so instead of fighting with the ego and fighting with this process, we want to relinquish and open ourselves to it. Now, not everybody goes through this kind of dark night stuff. They just have, you know, a lot of people have just mild kind of stuff. I hope you do, or have had mild dark nights, not really intense ones like I did. Yeah. So what do? You want to get guidance from a skilled teacher who knows what you're going through, who's probably gone through similar territory, who can help you through it, to navigate it. You want to know that this is normal, that you haven't lost your mind, because you feel like you've lost your mind. Like, oh my gosh, I'm just mentally ill now. Yeah. So you actually want to meditate more, not less, even though every cell in your body is saying, don't meditate, you can't meditate, don't meditate. You actually want to meditate more if you can. And you want to see if you can see every sensation, every angry thought, every fearful, hopeless, helpless feeling. Yeah? Don't roll up that mat. It'll get better. Go on an intensive meditation retreat if you can. Open to and talk about each stage with your experience. Name and note each sensation can really be helpful. You know, the naming and noting, labeling, frustration, anger, rage, you know, or whatever is going on. Just noting can be very helpful. Not taking it personally. Of course, getting the support of your Sangha can be very helpful. And what happens is once we go through this dark night, the sun comes out, it starts shining. We are freer than we were before we went in the dark night. Our moods are even more elevated than what they were before, right? We feel a sense of oneness and wholeness and love for ourselves and others and compassion for everyone in the world who's suffering. Some people say that societies, civilizations, or the human race itself goes through dark night stages, right? And I think, based on my short time here that I've been on this planet, I see, yeah, I think we're going through a dark night of the soul stage of the human race, going through a lot of dark stuff that comes up to be seen and processed and to work with, and then other times when things are much more easeful and loving and, you know, resourceful. Yeah. Here's Michael Hawkins, and then I'll wrap it up. Though it may be counterintuitive for a person to plunge headlong into the mouth of her or his most frightening demons, this is exactly what is required of the skillful and rigorous contemplative. Attack, 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 as if meditation is the last one. Open, open, open to whatever the dark night is throwing at us this time. Release, release, release from our resistance, letting go of our attachment to that resistance. One foot in front of the other, forward, forward, forward into the dark night, until the moment arises when that feeling of aloneness and helplessness is replaced by a knowingness that we were never truly alone, that some agency of transformation has been assisting, guiding and arranging our journey in an orderly manner, propelling us toward the other shore. Towards the other shore, that when the Buddha says someone becomes fully enlightened, he would say, gone to the other shore. Yeah, so it's part of our awakening process. All right. I hope I haven't scared the dickens out of you. Oh, let's open it up to the group.
It's still recording.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Wallace.
I was thinking about